Hey, what's up, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and answer them here in video format. Real quick, before I get started into the Q&A portion of this video, I want to take a quick second to thank everybody who has sent donations and has joined the Patreon. Those are the things that are keeping this channel alive, as YouTube has not paid me for the ads that have been put on this video since the start of the football season. This is a full-time job for me. It sucks that YouTube is not paying me, but your support, your dollars, your donations have been absolutely instrumental in making sure that this thing can continue to function uninterrupted as it has so far. Thank you guys. Thank you for doing it already, and thank you for doing it if you plan to do it in the future. With that being said, we're going to get into our dog checks, and we're going to start with Michael Matique, Greg Ealer, Seth Harrison, Corporal Nick Lopez, Nick Nasty, Tim McClure, Keith Anderson, Joshua Still, Sean Barron, Gagos Pisano, Dom Gazzulo, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Dan in West Texas, Billy, Michael Holdenack, Jared Austin, Moose Gentry, Patrick F. Austin, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, IT Rex, Austin Bolin, Jesus Serrano, Chris Foams, Picktown Browns Backers, CK and Marie Vibert, Mark Kahn, and Max Owl Dojo. Check. All right, let's get into these questions. This first question comes from Luke Holly, who says, Baker seems to be hitting his stride, and if this continues, who do you think will benefit more from it, between Austin Hooper or Juice Landry? P.S. Love the vids. I think Jarvis is going to benefit more because he is like the only top tier wide receiver on the team that's a veteran. So I think he's going to get a bulk of the benefit, but I do think the tight ends are going to benefit too. If you look at Baker's best game, where he threw to 5 touchdowns, only 1 interception, 3 of those touchdowns went to tight ends. Baker definitely has a level of comfort with his tight ends. He has a level of comfort when it comes to getting the ball down the field with Rashard Higgins, and he also has a level of comfort when it comes to Jarvis Landry. Now, Jarvis Landry, most notably, not been a big touchdown guy in any point in his career. This has not been his role. He's somebody who can get you to the red zone. So Baker's going to rely on the tight ends when he gets to the red zone. But as far as getting to there, as far as raw production, I think Jarvis is probably going to benefit the most out of everybody that we're talking about. Hopefully he can get back healthy and play towards the level that he was playing at last year, especially towards the end of the season. But that remains to be seen. This next question comes from Noah, who says, do you think that Baker Mayfield will look like a MVP with a easy upcoming schedule? I would be easy with that kind of verbiage. MVP is a little bit of a high bar for Baker. Right now, we just need him to look like starting quarterback to franchise guy. That's what we need out of Baker. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but does he have an opportunity to look good in the upcoming weeks with the easier schedule? Absolutely. You're not playing very tough teams. You're going to be in a situation where your offense is getting more healthy. You're getting Nick Chubb back more healthy, so you're going to be able to benefit from teams worrying about the run. And now, since Odell's not out there, teams are definitely not going to be shy about stacking the box, which means they're going to explicitly ask Baker Mayfield to beat them. And if that's something Baker Mayfield can do, he's going to benefit massively from that, because even if Baker Mayfield's playing at a high level, I think teams will opt to not let Nick Chubb kill them. So that's going to be a huge thing going forward. Will that be MVP level type production? I doubt it, because I just haven't seen him consistently put out MVP level type play or anything close to that in his career so far. But I do think it's going to be very good play if he can do what he's asked to do. The next question comes from Tilted, who says, what is your take as to why we didn't add anyone at the trade deadline? It came right before the bye week, and it would have been perfect timing to add a speedy wide receiver or DB, in my opinion. I don't know. The best thing I can glean from this is that this regime has a trust in their young players that most regimes don't. And I think we're seeing this rebuild at 2 different places right now, as far as fans in the front office. I think fans see this as the second year of the Odell experiment and the jump and the all-in push to be a very, very good contending football team. And I don't think fans are wrong for that. But I think Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry see this a little bit differently, and I don't think they're necessarily wrong for that either. It's just the perspectives are a little different, and I think that's messing with why we think they should do something and why they don't think they're going to do it at all. Because if you're Andrew Berry, this is your first year. They're still trying to get a feel for how good this team is, how good some of these young players are, and I don't think there is as much urgency on hitting some of these goals that we really want this team to hit, like making the playoffs, like winning 10 or more games that the fan base wants to see. It's just not the same with this regime. Now, will they be right in the long run? I don't know, but in the short run, that kind of philosophy has hurt them. When you look at replacing Grant Delpit, not doing much, it didn't help you this season. When you look at Andrew Billings, not replacing him, didn't help you. In the short run, I don't think not replacing or getting a fast wide receiver to replace what Odell can do is going to help you in the short run. In the long run, are those snaps going to be helpful towards Jordan Elliott's development? I don't know. Or Donovan Peoples-Jones or whoever else that is getting more playing time because this regime wants to stick with the guys on the roster. I don't know. Maybe it has a lot to do with the current global situation going on where they don't want to bring a ton of guys in or work a ton of guys out. That could also be a factor. Or maybe they feel really good about the makeup and the character of this locker room, and they don't want to disrupt it by bringing a bunch of new players in, especially new disgruntled players in. I don't know what their thinking is, but my best read on it is that they are mentally at a different part of this rebuild than most of the fan base. Will this be something that helps us long term? I don't know, but I know in the short term it's not going to benefit us. So I'm kind of concerned about that. I wish they would have done something. I think bringing in somebody like a John Ross for 1 year isn't going to hurt you, or even signing somebody like a Ted Ginn isn't going to hurt you or hurt this locker room or whatever they're worried about. But they want to give Donovan Peoples-Jones those snaps. They want to work on developing him. That's their philosophy, and they're sticking to it. The next question comes from Jonathan Hooker, who says, besides Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, Grant Delpit, and Ronnie Harrison, are there any other defensive players that you would like to see a part of the Browns' future? Do you anticipate a massive reconstruction on the defense this offseason or more patches all around? I'm just asking since I'm not sold on some of the young defensive pieces the Browns have, such as Greedy, Mack Wilson, Ogunjobi, and Taki. There is going to be a massive reshuffling, right? Because you look at Ogunjobi, who's going to be at the end of his rookie deal. I don't know if they're going to give him the fifth-year option. That's still up in the air with him. You also look at somebody like Olivier Vernon, who more than likely not going to be back next year. This defense is full of guys who are on 1 year prove-it deals. Carl Joseph not going to be back. Malcolm Smith, we don't know what his future is with the Browns after this season. He's been playing very good. Mack Wilson has been up and down. He has not been good this season at any point, so we're hoping that he kind of catches up at some point. Taki, I actually feel like there's some promise and some future with him. I like his versatility. I like him as a role player. I don't like him as an every down linebacker, but I think there's a lot you could do with him. BJ Goodson's on a 1 year deal. Terrence Mitchell's deal expires after this year. Greedy Williams has played for 2 years, but like 8 games at this point. So his future is up in question with this franchise. So yeah. Is there going to be a massive restructuring when it comes to personnel? I would anticipate it. I think they need to make some upgrades. I think they have some young players. They want to see what they can get out of them. But, the defense is a project. Now, the good news is that you have 2 big pieces in Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett, and maybe, hopefully, Grant Delpit, and maybe, hopefully, Ronnie Harrison, right? Maybe those 4 pieces pan out for you, and you just need to figure out the rest. It's not that big of a deal, but it's still something that's going to have to be reworked since all of these guys on the defense are on 1 year deals. And I think they went into it with the mindset that they were just going to patch this defense up for this year and load up on defense in next year's draft, because offensively, they really don't need to make any picks on the offensive side of the ball going forward. Next question comes from Aaron D, who says, is Denzel Ward covering Will Fuller or Brandon Cooks? Also, who are you worried about matchup wise with our corners? When it comes to Will Fuller, you're probably going to see him and Denzel Ward on top of each other. You're going to want Denzel Ward on the fastest wide receiver possible because that, again, limits the amount of space that you're asking Andrew Sadeo to get covered. You're just trying to suffocate the amount of area in which you're allowing a slower safety to get burned. Brandon Cooks is a little bit of a different deal. I think Terrence Mitchell can handle that assignment. I think also you're going to probably rely on Kevin Johnson to handle that assignment. Other than that, do they have a ton of matchups that concern me? No, but Deshaun Watson is a good enough quarterback that he's going to be able to make things happen. He's going to be able to find tight ends. Like, you're going to have good coverage, or you could have good coverage, but it's not going to matter if Deshaun Watson gets all day to throw, because those guys like that can make plays if they get extra time in the pocket one way or another. So yeah, I don't feel terrible about the matchup. I just don't know if this defensive line is going to be able to create pressure against this Texans offensive line, which isn't great, but they're good at the edge positions, and the Browns are specifically only good at the edge rush positions. Next question comes from Marcos, who says, hey, Q, do you think the Browns should try to sign Harrison Smith to a 1 or 2 year contract next season, or do you think they're going to start with Grant Delpit as well? Should the Browns try to get a safety in the 2021 draft? Yeah, it's gonna be tough because Grant Delpit, he's not even going to be remotely close to practicing and like getting into physical rehab by the time next year's draft starts. Like, you're talking about somebody who might start to hit the field again, best case scenario, like next August. So you're not going to have a read at all on if he's going to be able to help your team in 2021. Honestly, you're probably, if you're the Browns, going to have to make the assumption that he's not going to be able to help your team in 2021, which does put you in a rather precarious situation. You've seen what has happened with lackluster free safety play on this defense, and you're put in a situation where do you pretty much just throw out a second-round pick and draft somebody early to fill that role in next year's draft when you could spend a lot of those picks on the defensive line? Or do you go out and spend money that's starting to become a scarce resource on somebody like a Harrison Smith in order to fill that hole to give Grant Delpit time, which is going to be a massive question mark for the long term because we don't know if Grant Delpit's ever going to play like he did at LSU ever again. It's an Achilles tear. It's not a guarantee. So they are in a tough situation when it comes to safety. I don't know what they're going to be able to do because the reality with the free safety position, I've said this a lot, it's not a cheap position to fill. It's not an easy position to fill. It's a position that either you can draft it young and early in the draft, or you can sign somebody to an expensive contract or trade half your team trying to get somebody who can play that role. These guys are expensive. These guys are not easy to acquire. So in an ideal world, you would want to sign Harrison Smith to a 1 or 2 year deal. But one, if you're going to get him to that deal, that number's going to be massive. We're talking at least $15 million a year for 2 years. And I doubt a free safety in the open market is going to accept a short-term deal that will leave you away from all of these cap penalties, especially when the cap might go down after this year. The Browns front office, and this isn't really their fault. Grant Delpit, they couldn't anticipate he was going to tear his Achilles, but they're in a bad situation now because of that, because that's their long-term solution is Grant Delpit. That is a massive question mark now. And as far as filling that in the short term, it's almost impossible. So I don't know what they do because that's just a tough spot to be in. The next question comes from RTR, who says, do the Dolphins scare you potentially keeping the Browns out the playoffs? There are a lot of 5-3 or 4-4 teams in the AFC this year. It's a very good conference. It's a very deep conference. The Browns currently would not be in the playoffs, even though they're 5-3. I think they lose the tiebreaker with Las Vegas. There are a lot of teams that concern me if you're the Cleveland Browns, and that they will keep you out. Now, the good thing for the Browns is that I think of all the teams in this kind of middle class, they have the easiest schedule. They have the easiest path forward to control their own destiny, but that's not a guarantee at all. So, yeah, it's not just the Dolphins. It's teams like Indy. It's teams like Tennessee. It's teams like Miami. All of these teams that are in this push for this 7th seed, which looks like it's going to require a finish of at least 9-7, if not 10-6 to get into, which is wild considering what it's taken to get into that last wild card spot the last few years. I mean, Pittsburgh almost slipped in there with the 8-8 record last year. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough tough sledding ahead. The 7th seed is not a guarantee in the AFC because there are a ton of teams gunning for it. And the division, since Pittsburgh's undefeated, is pretty much out of reach. Next question comes from Giants Nation, who says, "What's up, Quincy? I hope you're doing good. YouTube get their stuff together. I appreciate your content. Appreciate that. My question is, do you think my Giants should draft a QB, especially if Gettleman gets fired? Usually a new GM wants a new QB. So do you think my Giants will have it?" Yes, your Giants will have a new QB. Whoever that is, I don't know. There's some good options out there. I'm not hot on Justin Fields, but he's had a good college football season so far. Trevor Lawrence, you know, you got to get the right system for him. Like if you can get your hands on Greg Roman as your coach, I would take Trevor Lawrence. Or even like a Ron Rivera, I would take Trevor Lawrence. You know, somebody who has experience with somebody who doesn't fit the traditional mold. You know, do something like a Sean McDermott has had done, or do something that, you know, Baltimore has done with Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, vice versa. If you have somebody who's going to try to fit Trevor Lawrence into a traditional offense, I think that's going to be a catastrophic failure. But if you get the right mind with Trevor Lawrence, you'll be fine. But yeah, if the Giants fire Gettleman, and I think regardless of if they fire Gettleman or not, they should look at a new quarterback. It doesn't look like Daniel Jones is the guy. He has severe turnover issues. I haven't seen somebody since like peak Kirk Cousins that turns the ball over as frequently as he does, in as many ways as he does. So that's been a massive concern when it comes to Daniel Jones, and I don't think that's one he grows out of. So I would definitely look for different quarterbacks. Maybe a Trey Lance slips to you. That would be a good situation to find yourself in, because Trey Lance, I think, is going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL. But yeah, if you're the Giants, if you're a Giants fan, it's time to look at a new quarterback, because Daniel Jones, he don't look like he's it. This next question comes from Beep Beep Out of the Way, who says, "Do you think Chubb will run wild on Houston, or will they ease him back in?" They're absolutely gonna ease him back in. He has a knee brace on still. If he plays on Sunday, that's not a guarantee yet either, but if he plays on Sunday, he's probably getting like 10, maybe 12 carries max. I would not put him in the fourth quarter. I would not test it. They're probably going to ease him back in because he's very important. You want to give him those 10, 12 touches, because even him injured at 10 to 12 touches is going to be much more effective than Dearness Johnson getting 10 touches. Kareem Hunt's still going to have to carry the load. So yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit of Nick Chubb sprinkled in there every once in a while. And I think at most you get 12. You're probably going to see somewhere within the range of like 5 to 10. That's it for Q&A. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.